As we just reported to you, we are learning that Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, age 60, will now be Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate in the upcoming presidential election. Let's tell you a little bit about Governor Tim Walz. Again, he is 60 years old. He assumed office in January 2019. He served as a U.S. representative from 2007 to 2019. He also served as the ranking member of the Committee on Veterans Affairs. He is a former public school teacher as well. Again, Kamala Harris now confirming to CBS News, her team is confirming that Governor Tim Walz is her running mate in the upcoming presidential election. This is someone who is the governor of Minnesota. Again, Minnesota is not a swing state, doesn't have a very large national profile. So this will be someone that the American voter population will be learning much more about in the coming days and weeks ahead of this presidential election. Here's a CBS News special report.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Gayle King here in New York. We have just learned the name of the Democratic Party's vice presidential nominee. CBS News has confirmed that the party's leader in November, Kamala Harris, has chosen, there you see it on your screen, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. He is a former congressman and a retired Army National Guardsman who was elected governor 6 years ago. The Democratic ticket will appear together at a rally in Philadelphia later tonight. Let's go right now to Weijia Jiang. She's at the White House. Weijia, they held this a secret right up until the very, very end. What else can you tell us about Governor Walz?
And Gayle, that is because this is a decision that came down to the wire for Vice President Harris. In fact, we were told that when she went to bed last night, she still didn't know because she wanted to sleep on it. But then this morning, she woke up and it came to her, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. And Gayle, when I look at all the facts about Walz, here's what stands out. He is a winner. He was elected 6 times to represent Minnesota in Congress. He is now in his second term as governor. He is very popular, and he has a voting record on the issues that really lines up with Harris. After George Floyd was killed in his state, he passed a massive police reform package. He said that there would be no abortion under his watch in 2022. And on economics, he says the Democrats really need messaging and to make it more clear. And Gayle, let's talk about messaging for a minute and the power of one word. In the early days that Vice President Harris was going to become the likely nominee, we were not talking about Tim Walz. And then he went on television and he said one word. He said Republicans were weird. And then he gained a lot of attention and his profile soared. And then it never really stopped. And today, again, we can report that he will be joining Vice President Harris on the Democratic ticket, and they will be stumping together in a matter of hours in Philadelphia. Gayle.
Weijia, you raised a really good point. 2 weeks ago, we were not talking about Tim Walz, but here we are this morning. Thank you. Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costas is with us now, along with CBS News contributor, that's Ashley Etienne, former Communications Director for Vice President Harris. Ashley, I want to start with you because we just heard from Weijia that Vice President Kamala Harris waited till the very end, had to sleep on it overnight, and apparently made her decision this morning. What do you think went into her thought process and that she waited right to the bitter end?
Yeah, I think the breadth of Walz's experience is probably what persuaded her most. I mean, being a military veteran, a former teacher, to a chairman in Congress, to an executive governor who rallied his state and moved his state through incredibly tough times, I think makes him incredibly appealing to her and will provide her with this broad perspective that I think she needs, which is, you know, what are the challenges facing the American people? How do we implement legislation? How do we rally Congress around it? And how do we actually get it done on the ground in these states? So I think he's good for her for that reason. And then also what was just mentioned, the fact that he's won in these very tough districts and these tough red leaning districts, I think gives him and gives her the ticket and a leg up when it comes to going into those areas where the 1% and 2%, those independent and disaffected Republicans are. He can speak to them on their level about issues that matter most to them in a way that I think Shapiro and the others could not. And that's going to be value add for her going into this next race when it's going to be decided on the margins.
Ashley, we have live pictures outside of Tim Walz's home right now. I wonder if we could show those, because there it is. I wonder what he's thinking at this very moment. And number two, you know Kamala Harris. Do you know if the two of them had a previous friendship or partnership in any way?
Well, he's got to be incredibly excited. I was just chatting with the Attorney General in his state, who's very excited, not just for him, but Keith Ellison, who's also excited for the governor. So I can imagine he's overwhelmed with excitement, but I also know him I know him, as you put earlier, to be very scrappy. And so I can imagine he's ready to get in and get dirty and push back in all kinds of ways. I don't know that they had a really good, solid relationship before this process started. But neither did she with Biden, and neither did Obama with Biden. So I don't think that is a really deciding factor. But I will tell you that he's incredibly funny. He's, direct, plain spoken. And I think that'll jive really well with the vice president and her personality.
Yeah, I think people like plain speaking without being mean. Thank you very much, Ashley. And we can say Tim Walz, apparently a good neighbor. He's got a very nice lawn. Let's go now to Robert Costa. Because, Robert, people say it doesn't make a ton of electoral sense. What's your take on that and why she picked Governor Walz?
Good to be with you, Gail. In the eyes of many top Democrats close to Vice President Harris, it might not make sense electorally when you're just speaking about a map. But to top Democrats, it does make political sense because they see in Governor Walz someone who can fill the void left by President Biden. President Biden was close to organized labor in this country. He was able to go to places like the industrial Midwest. I was there with him and talk to union members and say, you have to stick with the Democrats. Don't listen to former President Trump. I'm one of you. Let's stick together as traditional Democrats. And Tim Walz, as the Minnesota governor, has built a record, but he's also built a relationship with labor and other key constituencies inside of the Democratic Party. And so he's going to help Vice President Harris rebuild that Biden-Harris coalition ahead of November, along with all of the personal characteristics he does bring to the race. As Ashley said, and as we just so ably reported, he has a personality, he has an ability to have a bit of fun, some wit, and he doesn't mind taking a shot at the GOP. And often your role as the VP is to be the attack dog who can do it with a smile.
All right. Stand by, Bob. Thank you. Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes is in Philadelphia, where Harris and Walz, we better get used to that, Harris and Walz will kick off a tour of the battleground states. Nancy, what are you hearing? What can you tell us?
Well, one of the things that set Walz apart from all of the other top contenders, Gail, was the fact that he has a variety of different types of leadership experience. Not only is he the chair of the Democratic Governors Association, which is a pretty powerful group, in that capacity, he needs to kind of get all of these strong personalities pointed in the same direction. So he's got deep relationships with other governors. He's going to need that over the next few months. But he's also the only person on that list of 5 or 6 finalists who had both executive leadership experience and legislative leadership experience. He, of course, has been the governor of Minnesota for 6 years now. But before that, he was a member of Congress for 6 terms. He sat on the Armed Services Committee. He sat on Veterans Affairs. So he knows how Congress works. And you could really make the case, Gail, that part of the reason that Biden was able to achieve so many things on his to-do list in his first term was because he had that kind of deep legislative experience. He knew how the levers of power in Congress work. And you can make the case now that Harris, who served less than 1 Senate term in Congress before she became vice president, can really use someone who has 12 years of experience on Capitol Hill.
But it's also interesting, too, though, Nancy, because he was considered a dark horse. I think that's what's fascinating to many people. It seemed to have boiled down to, if you believe what you were hearing in the media,
what do y'all think about this? Let me know what you think about this pick.
it would boil down to Josh Shapiro,
Tim Walz. I think it's a good pick.
and Mark Kelly. And then lately, over the last week or so, we started hearing the name more and more about Tim Walz. What do you make of that? How he appeared to some to come out of nowhere, and it's like running a race, and all of a sudden he's ahead of the pack.
What I make of it is that all of these people were, having to go from a standing start. And remember, a few weeks ago, we weren't even thinking about any of these people being a running mate because we thought that Kamala Harris was going to be the running mate to President Biden. Suddenly, when that all changed, yes, Pete Buttigieg, probably better known to a national audience. Josh Shapiro, somebody who has been talked about a lot as a person with presidential ambitions. They had the early edge because people knew about them. But Walz proved over the course of a couple of weeks that he had really great communication ability. He had a way of making the case that some of the other top contenders didn't, and that could come in handy, not in necessarily Minnesota, where Democrats haven't lost a presidential race since 1972, but in other Midwestern states, certainly like Wisconsin and Michigan, which are big battleground states this year.
I'm telling you, there seems to be there's something appealing about a guy for people who say it's comfortable talking in a T-shirt and a baseball cap as he is talking in a suit, as he is talking in a tuxedo. I know we got to go, but can we go back to Bob Costa for just a second? Because, Bob, do you think that this was an attempt to satisfy the more liberal wing of the party? What are your thoughts on that?
It's fascinating, Gail, politically, because you look at Governor Tim Walz, and if you know nothing about him, you see a guy who seems amiable, easygoing, can crack a joke, talks about hot dish up in Minnesota, that famous dish they love to do, the casserole, can talk about fishing. But he's also someone, it must be noted, who politically is well liked by progressives in the House of Representatives, where he once served. Pramila Jayapal, who's the leader of the Progressive Caucus, one of the key progressives in the House, she's been a key stakeholder for him in recent days, saying, I'd love to see Tim Walz on the ticket. So has former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She's been an advocate for him, kind of winking in recent days that she'd love to see a former House colleague land on the ticket. When you have Pramila Jayapal and Nancy Pelosi both being boosters for your vice presidential candidacy, that says a lot, that even though you may seem like kind of a centrist Midwesterner in persona, politically he touches a lot of bases.
Yeah, you mentioned Nancy Pelosi, and I have to say, I just wince a little bit, Bob, because she was just here. And when of course, she didn't tell us what she was thinking or who it was going to be, but now that it's out, would have certainly loved to have gotten her thoughts on that.
And the breaking news is big in this unprecedented campaign, this season, the likes of which we have never seen before. We have one more major development. Vice President Kamala Harris, the presumptive Democratic nominee now for President of the United States, has selected Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her running mate. Week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe seen as a dark horse. Now he has emerged as the choice. Our MJ Lee, Jeff Zeleny, John King, Jamie Gangel, all reporting on this. MJ just saying maybe Walz, a vibes pick, seen as a Midwestern happy warrior. John King is here with us in New York, watching this unfold before our eyes. Let's just start, reset at the top of the hour, what Tim Walz means for this ticket now.
It means, number one, the Democrats have their ticket. They're about to go into their convention. And after Kamala Harris clinched the nomination with the most unorthodox nominating process of our lifetime, the President of the United States steps aside after winning the primaries. She wins a virtual voting among the delegates. And then she wants to make this decision. She wants all this cleaned up before they get to Chicago for the convention. So that can all be about prosecuting the case against Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and against the Republicans. So a very truncated process, a lot of pressure on the vice president. So as voters out there get to judge, how she's handling this first big executive decision. So why Tim Walz? We're showing pictures of him right there in a jacket and a shirt with no tie on. Earlier, we had pictures of him in a T-shirt. I do think the contrast here is going to be striking. This is a small town Midwesterner. This is a man who won a Republican House seat and held it. In very difficult years for Democrats, he held on to it. So he has that small town rural appeal, which is why did Donald Trump pick J.D. Vance? Sort of the same idea. Can you go into small communities and make the case? He's the chairman of the Democratic Governors Association. I can tell you his fellow Democratic governors love him, love him. They think he's smart. They think he builds consensus. They think he's really funny. And so they like being in his company. And that matters in a campaign. In terms of Harris being out, are you confident that do you have the loyalty and do you trust your partner out there in the campaign trail?
There you go, Andrea. So we got our pick.
Does that person at tense moments, and there will be a lot of tense moments in the next 90 days of this campaign, make you laugh and make you smile and maybe take some of the pressure off you? Can you do the small market television? Walz fits that bill. Now, we're going to see how he plays out. And again, I'll be a broken record on this. There is no data in the 37 years I've been doing this that says your vice presidential pick makes the difference in the end. However, it can hurt you. We could have a conversation about has Vance hurt Trump or at least stalled Trump's momentum a little bit there? And it can help you in the idea that, again, popular with governors, that helps you raise money. Popular with governors, that helps get more people on the team. Popular in small town America, create a little buzz for Democrats in places maybe where they're not always seen. And that is one of the Democratic Party's problems. In the years I've been doing this, Michael Dukakis was my first campaign, 1988. He won 10 states.
Massachusetts miracle.
Iowa and West Virginia were states won by Michael Dukakis in 1988. Those who are blue-collar Democrats who worked with their hands on farms or in coal mines or in factories. The Democrats have lost those votes. Tim Walz knows how to win those votes. Again, the presidential candidate decides who wins the election. But a vice presidential candidate can help a little bit. And she's made a governing choice here, too. A progressive governor who was in the military, in the House, then elected statewide and reelected statewide. So you have governing experience here, again, in a different mix, a Midwestern mix. She's a West Coast politician. So it's an interesting combination. Politics, I always call it a casserole, right? You're bringing all these ingredients together and trying to make them work. The last thing I'll say is, in my travels over the last year, one of the issues is people are so disillusioned with politics. That's why you have so-called double haters, people who don't like Trump and don't like Biden. Well, now President Biden's out of the race. So that gives the Democrats an opportunity. They have this opportunity to shake up the race, to get people to look again. So somebody who's a little different, a little unorthodox, Kamala Harris is.
But, that won't stop MAGA from criticizing her because, see, MAGA, Donald Trump, and his entire campaign, they have been calling Kamala Harris herself a DEI hire. Now, when Donald Trump was asked why did he call her that, right? He tried to pivot and asked the journalist, well, can you define DEI? Why does a journalist have to define DEI when that's been a point? That's been a message that his own campaign has been putting out for over a year. Keep in mind, a DEI, you can't do that when you're up for votes, when voters have to select you, right? When she was a prosecutor, there was an election. She had to run against someone else, and she got more votes. When she was in the Senate, she had to be elected by voters. She had to run against someone else. She got more votes. Now, when she was vice president, she had to be elected. Guess who got more votes? You see, so if you don't get the votes, you can't get the job. That's how it works. That's why Donald Trump is not the president anymore, because he did not get the votes. It wouldn't matter what background Donald Trump had. If you don't get the votes, you don't get the job. And if you just so happen to be president and run for office again and you don't get the votes, you're fired. That's how it works. So we're still waiting for Donald Trump to explain how Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. But hey, who knows if we'll get that? You never know.
Different. She's a woman of color, right? So she's different in her own right. Now to bring somebody else different into the mix when you're trying to get another look, it's an interesting pick.
And you mentioned him being a happy warrior. That's not something that you always hear in politics. There's been a lot of people who have been really, really annoyed, pissed off is probably the best word you could use at the candidates recently, using very dark language, et cetera, et cetera. He's not that guy.
No, he makes the case against Trump and Trumpism with a smile. And he says, make it, he urges people to make it with a smile. And he urges people to say, don't demonize the voters. Don't demonize the people with whom you disagree. Try to have a conversation with them. Try to win them over with your own arguments and with your own details, not by saying you're a moron or you're an idiot or go away, I don't want to listen to you. Try to find out how they got there.
Minnesota nice.
What is what is the source of their disillusionment and their disaffection? Not just push them away because they disagree with you.
Yeah. Let's go to Jeff Zeleny now. Jeff, there is this question about what the relationship was before all this. How much did Kamala Harris know Tim Walz or have ever sort of talked to and had conversations with Tim Walz before the dark horse became the pick?
Ooh.
Love it.
Oh, it's so gritty. I love it.
Know Tim Walz or have ever sort of talked to and had conversations with Tim Walz before the dark horse became the pick?
Sir, I'm told not much. They did not have much of a relationship. But another source just a moment ago pointed me back to a visit that Vice President Harris took to the Twin Cities in Minnesota in March, and she visited a Planned Parenthood clinic. Of course, she has been the leading champion on the, at the time, Biden-Harris campaign for abortion rights, and that has been one of the really anthems of her candidacy. And Governor Walz was at this Planned Parenthood clinic. It's the first time a sitting vice president has visited such a clinic, and I'm told that she walked away impressed by his demeanor, how he carried himself, and she liked him, but did not know much about him. And of course, at the time, this would have been unthinkable. Just 16 days ago, she was the running mate. She was not looking for her own running mate. So that is what is remarkable about this. But really, in the last 2 weeks, Governor Walz went from a third-tier contender in the views of someone who's close to him to one of the top three. And they believe that was largely because of what he was doing sort of very publicly. He was doing every interview he could do, trying to make the case to some Democrats and make the case why he is the type and flavor of Democrat that could help win voters back. If you think back to, and excuse me for that interruption, if you think back to sort of the Democratic Party, how it was not that long ago, when Barack Obama won in 2008 and 2012, they won a lot of areas that are now red. John was just talking about many of those areas. Governor Walz is someone they believe who can help sort of win back these areas. There, of course, are limitations to this. Vice President Harris is at the top of the ticket. She is the standard bearer. So we will see in the coming days how much he can sort of give some calm and relief to some voters who are unsure about this. But the contrast is something I'm told the Harris campaign very much liked, and the chemistry is something that she also liked in the final days of this search. Guys?
Not a lawyer. Tim Walz also not a lawyer, which is unusual, right? I guess Al Gore wasn't a lawyer. I mean, it's not often. Social studies here. You don't often you see, politicians at this point who haven't had experience in the law, especially on the Democratic side. Let's go to MJ Lee for more reporting on how we got to this point. MJ, what are you hearing now?
Yeah, John, I do think we should just take an extra beat to take stock of really the really remarkable and extraordinary series of events that led us to this moment. It was 16 days ago that President Joe Biden dropped out of the 2024 race. And as you've been talking about, Vice President Harris was able to lock up this nomination so quickly, but so much so that there was not even at any point, even a blip of a real conversation within the Democratic Party about whether they should consider anybody else other than Kamala Harris. And now we have not only Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, but within a matter of days, she has deliberated on and chosen the running mate of her choice. And it is now going to be the Harris-Walz ticket running against the Trump-Vance ticket. So we have seen such a remarkable and unprecedented transformation of the Democratic ticket in just, again, a matter of days. And I do think we should note that this moment really marks, in some ways, Kamala Harris defying President Biden. As we have talked about so much for years and years, President Biden and the advisors that are closest to him have made the argument repeatedly that the person at the top of the ticket had to be Joe Biden, that only he was capable of defeating Donald Trump, that with anybody else, the country really risked a second term Trump presidency. And in that, they were at least implicitly suggesting that the Democratic bench of talent was inadequate. But now here we have Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, now Tim Walz right there below her, and the two of them certainly do now represent sort of the future of the Democratic Party in a way that we would not have seen had Joe Biden remained at the top of the ticket. Now, one thing I will say, as we are now talking about this ticket facing up against President Trump and J.D. Vance on the other side of the aisle, I do think there's something to be said for the way that Walz has conducted himself in the last several weeks or so, as he has made the case effectively, a lot of Democrats would say, against Trump and Vance. You know, he is the guy that made the weird messaging really take hold as he described the Republicans on the other side of the aisle as those weird guys. That has been a really politically effective messaging. And he has clearly shown, whether he was intentionally auditioning for this job or not, that he can be that effective messenger for Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. So all of these things would have gone into that decision-making process. I know that we were talking about this a little bit in the last hour, but I do think sort of that vibes decision, how much that factored into things, just the idea that this is somebody that she would have had good personal chemistry with, that he is widely described as somebody that people just enjoy spending time with.
Okay, let's switch over now.
I went live as soon as I was able to, as soon as I saw the news. Let's go. First of all, let's cover the ground of CNN reporting the news.
Jump in here. Let's jump in.
This is CNN breaking news.
And the breaking news, CNN.
Okay,
has
I'm gonna move
Vice
this one
President
forward just a little bit. Now,
Kyle Nakamura.
Here we go. Now, before we continue with this, I just wanted to let all MAGA folk know, people that support Donald Trump, in regards to the issue of DEI, that in fact, you too, regardless of your background, regardless of your color, regardless of your religion, you too can be a DEI hire. Did you know that? Did you know that? It actually can benefit you as well, and does. You just don't realize it yet. But let's get back to the VP pick. Congratulations, Tim Walz.
Nakamura said, I don't know who Tim Walz is. Well, let's introduce you guys to him. Let's watch some clips and show you guys how relatable he is, how good of a communicator this man is. Let's watch this one first.
Who's asking for this crazy stuff? Who's asking to raise the price of insulin? Who's asking to get rid of
Really quickly, everyone in chat was just going crazy over Tim Walz. People love him. He's great.
birth control? They do these focus groups or whatever. Who's sitting in a bar in Racine, Wisconsin saying, we need to ban Animal Farm? Nobody is. They're talking about real things. So when these guys.
Okay, y'all, this is Adam Mockler. He's a young, bright man who's been actually doing some excellent news reporting. So take a look at what he put together.
In situations in front of real people and trying to pretend like they know what people are going through, they've got nothing to offer. And no one can picture them in their own lives. I brought this thing up that Donald Trump tries to mock Vice President Harris for laughing. And I made the point, you never see this guy laugh. You never see him do these normal things. Imagine when I go home at night, I pick up the Frisbee and throw it, and my dog catches it, he comes over, he gets the belly rub for being a good boy. Picture these guys doing that kind of stuff. They just can't. And what it allows us to do is, we hear you where you're coming from. Who's asking for this crazy?
He's so good. He's so good. And he basically coined the entire weird phenomena that we have right now. He basically started the entire Democratic Party's messaging. Wild stuff. Let's watch this.
Governor Walz for vice president.
These are weird people on the other side. They want to take.
And don't you think it's weird that Donald Trump and his campaign could call Kamala Harris a DEI hire for an entire year, and then the first time he gets asked, why did he do it? He completely freaks out and loses his mind. I mean, who does that? Who blames the journalist for asking the candidate who wants votes why he called the opposing Democratic candidate, why he would call them a DEI hire for an entire year? I mean, isn't that weird? Isn't that weird that he wouldn't understand that question and how relative it is to his own candidacy? It's strange.
Take books away. They want to be in your exam room. I've got a 23-year-old who told me TikTok is on fire. Go ahead and continue to denigrate people. Go ahead. My God, they went after cat people. Good luck with that. Turn on the internet and see what cat people do when you go after them.
Don't fuck with cats.
It'd be funny if it wasn't so sad. They see the least fortunate among us as scapegoats and punchlines.
New poll in chat. How do you feel about Walz? Thank you for the donation. Thank you for all you do, Adam. I'm so excited for Tim Walz. You know, the really brilliant thing about VP Harris's timing, sorry to pause this video. It is official. It's official from CNN. They just reported it. But the really brilliant thing about...
All right, hold on. He's going to break down a little bit of his
like a
record.
Great guy. Thank you for the donation, Jeff. Timothy James Walz is an American politician, former U.S. Army non-commissioner officer, and retired educator who served as the 41st governor of Minnesota. My favorite part about him is the retired educator piece. I really like that piece. I think he can be used to connect with a lot of people with the retired educator piece.
Definitely.
A member of the Democratic Party. He is its nominee for vice president. Wow.
And guess what? He can also explain to MAGA folks how they can also be DEI hires. Yes, you can. Check it out. You should research it. You can.
They are quick to update.
But but don't get it twisted. You can be a DEI hire, but if it's for something like a job you need to be, a position you need to be elected for, like a prosecutor, like Kamala Harris was, like a senator, like Kamala Harris was, or like a VP, like Kamala Harris is, you actually need the votes, though. You can't just get in with your background. It's not possible.
This happened 5 minutes ago. He was a member of the United States House of Representatives, representing Minnesota's 1st Congressional District. He was born in Nebraska. He joined the Army National Guard and worked in agriculture, manufacturing, and teaching after high school. He later graduated from Chadron State.
Hey, I got a question. Here's a great question. I'm sorry. Here's a great question. Trump in his campaign can ask Tim Walz, is he a DEI hire? Is he a diversity equity hire? Is he? What do y'all think? Is he? Could he be? Was Biden one? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Is that possible? Was Donald Trump a DEI hire? What do you all think about that? And if they weren't, prove it.
College in Nebraska. Let's watch this one more interview clip of him on CNN.
You being a big government liberal.
What a monster. Kids are eating and having full bellies so they can go learn. And women are making their own healthcare decisions. And we're a top 5 business state. And we also rank in the top 3 of happiness. Look, they're going to label whatever they're going to label. He's going to roll it out, mispronounce names, to try and make the case. The fact of the matter is, where you see the policies that Vice President Harris was a part of making, Democratic governors across the...
People in chat keep asking, is this real? Is it real? Yeah, it's absolutely real. CNN made the decision a bit ago. I won't play it again, but they did the breaking news. Then at the bottom, it says Harris picks Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her VP running mate. It is official. It's going to be great.
Stuff. Who's asking?
Oh, wait, no, sorry. We were watching this.
All right, let me stop this right here. Look, if anybody wants to hop up. Oh, matter of fact, let me just put Adam Mockler's channel in the chat for people that want to go over there and subscribe to his channel. Let me see here. Adam Mockler. Here we go. Wait a second. Okay, let's see here. Here we go. Right now, anybody that wants to hop up on the panel, speak their piece respectfully, please do. You're welcome to hop up if you want to talk about the VP pick, if you want to talk about anything else in context to the vice president pick for Kamala Harris. Now, let's see here. Let me go there's been a lot of activity today on one of the posts that I made about the DEI hire when Trump was being asked by the journalist. So that's ongoing. Every second there's a comment now, or every 5 seconds there's a comment on that one. So let me just go and pivot. Let's see here. Right. You see, here, this is, and these MAGA people, they just don't seem to get it. They just don't seem to get it. But let me go over to this one real quick and show you.
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is.
Give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition?
Now he's acting like the earnest is on her to define what diversity, equity, inclusion, and when he's the one who's been calling, he's the one who called Kamala Harris that for an entire year, for over a year. He's the one who has a campaign that spread that message out about Kamala Harris, his opponent, right? For a whole year. I mean, why does the journalist need to define it when she's not the one who called Kamala Harris that? See, this is the mind games of the MAGA people, and it doesn't work. It's failing. It's failing miserably, like everything else they have done. And I'm talking everything from the voter trying to stop votes, lying about the election, going to court and trying to get laws to be changed to stop people from being able to vote from overseas, and military people to stop them from being able to vote overseas if their ballots doesn't show up 5 days after the election date. All types of nonsense, they've been up to, and they have been failing miserably. Now, let me just read you some of these comments here. Look at this. V. Bennett, you must be young. Reporters used to be professional and their opinions did not come into play. Now, it's just who can make Trump look worse. Where is there an opinion in that?
Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question.
No, you have to define it. Define it for me if you.
I just defined it, sir.
How do you define DEI? Go ahead.
Sorry, that's just that's not an opinion. She didn't offer her opinion about what a DEI is. Trump asked her for her opinion about it. He asked her, "Can you define it?" She's not the one who's been using the term. She's not the one that is looking for that is running for election. She's not the one that is asking people to vote for her. She's the one who has been following him and his campaign, directing that accusation towards his opponent. And a strong, intelligent journalist must ask that question. But MAGA folks don't seem to know what journalism is. It sounds like they're really good at gaslighting, though. V. Bennett, then she would have shown up. Why is she able to do it on Zoom, yet he was not? Matt, have any of these people even confirmed this nonsense that Trump, a lot of what MAGA does right now is they make all types of accusations, and the majority of them tend to turn out to not be true at all, to be baseless. But they hurl accusation after accusation after accusation after accusation. They hurl so many accusations out at one time, you don't actually get to talk about anything that really happened. Nobody could sit there and debate untruths for an hour. You see what I mean? It's just really impossible. Now let's check this out. Mosby says the 3 words come from an acronym. Why didn't she define the 3 words literally set without conjunctions? Conjunctions, junction, what's your function? Again, what are you talking about? Donald Trump and his campaign are the ones who called Kamala Harris a DEI hire. Do they know what it means? Why can't he talk about why he called Kamala Harris that and make it fit the definition? But here they're putting the earnest on the journalist who is not the one running for office, who is not the one who made the accusation about towards Kamala Harris. I mean, why the hell would the public care what her definition is or how she would define it? Why do we need her to define it? It's Trump that made the accusation. We need him to explain why he threw that accusation out at Kamala. Now let's look at the next one. Here we go again. This is ridiculous. Hold on. Let me see here. I think this person. Here we go. Check this out. V. Bennett, since you're so stuck on race, I'm not the one who called Kamala Harris a DEI hire when she's been elected to her post. That's the MAGA people stuck on race. And when you make that accusation about me, you know what I actually have to do? I have to really just let you know how I feel about this.
That's when I smack the shit out you. I smack the shit out you.
All right, now let's see here. V. Bennett, this is by Bing Bong, whatever that name is. That may not even be a real person. It could be a troll coming from a troll farm somewhere, paid by the Russian state. But since you're so stuck on her race, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Where's my damn response? Here we go. Let's go to the replies. Can I get to the replies here? Okay, maybe.
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
Is it here? Let me see. Sorry, y'all. 2 seconds, because I have to. Now he said that my reply was BS. Okay. Well, I can clear this up. Let me see here. Let me open this up, the right message here, and let's see. Now, he said, since you're so stuck on her race, how do you feel about the countless black men she imprisoned for marijuana? And then when she was asked if she ever smoked it, she just laughed. Now, here's another misconception that MAGA people seem to put out quite frequently about Kamala Harris. And it's not actually true. All right. And I'll tell you why. The assertion that Kamala Harris imprisoned countless black men for possession or use of marijuana is a contentious and nuanced topic. Let me explain why. Kamala Harris's record on marijuana as a prosecutor is one reason why. Check this out. The prosecution approach. As the San Francisco district attorney, Harris oversaw a period during which marijuana-related offenses were prosecuted. However, her office did not prioritize low-level marijuana offenses. She actually focused more on serious crimes. Diversion programs. Harris supported initiatives like Back on Track program, which aimed to reduce recidivism by providing job training and education to first-time offenders, including those with drug addictions. Okay, as the California Attorney General, keep in mind these are laws that people vote in. She didn't make the law; she's prosecuting them. You need to ask who made the laws. That was not Kamala Harris, Now, she wasn't a senator at that time. Now, check this out. A statewide role. As the Attorney General, Harris had a broader jurisdiction, and her office was involved in enforcing state laws, including those related to marijuana. Why do you not want to know who voted those laws into being? Why don't you want to know who wrote those laws? Why do you give Kamala Harris all the blame? Don't you think that's unrealistic? You need to learn, you MAGA people need to learn how the government works on the state and federal level. Marijuana legalization. During Kamala Harris's tenure, Harris did not actively campaign for the legalization, but did oversee enforcement of existing laws. Okay? She was seen as neither a strong opponent nor a champion of marijuana reform during this time. You see, the historical context is important. The war on drugs. Now, do you guys want a war on drugs or not? Is drugs a problem or not? You got to make up your mind, MAGA. You have to make up your mind. How many states where Republicans are the majority where marijuana is even legal right now. Do we need to check that out? Is it legal? The state I come from, Washington, D.C., it's legal. Okay, see, us voters did something about that on the statewide level. You see, now, why don't you do something about it in your state? Let's see here. Let's take a look and see how many Republican, let me see here. How many states with Republican House and Senate representatives have voted to legalize marijuana use? Let's see here. I'm going to pull this up because I don't like to guess, y'all. I like to ask questions. I like to do the research. Just find out. I don't like to assuming there's so many things out there that people need to research. You'll never be able to be on point with anything if you're constantly relying on assumptions. You can't get anywhere with assumptions. So let me help. Let's see here.
As of my last update in August 2023, several states with Republican-controlled legislatures have passed laws to legalize marijuana use, either for medical or recreational purposes. The dynamics around marijuana legalization often involve bipartisan support despite the general partisan divide on many other issues. Here is a breakdown of such states. Recreational marijuana legalization. States with Republican-controlled legislatures. 1. Alaska legalized recreational marijuana through a ballot initiative in 2014. The state legislature, which has been predominantly Republican, has since overseen the implementation of the law. 2. Montana. Voters approved recreational marijuana legalization through a ballot measure in 2020. The Republican-controlled legislature then passed bills to regulate the industry. Medical marijuana legalization. States with Republican-controlled legislatures. 1. Oklahoma legalized medical marijuana through a ballot initiative in 2018. The Republican-dominated legislature has managed the regulatory framework since then. 2. Utah legalized medical marijuana through a ballot initiative in 2018. The state legislature, which is predominantly Republican, enacted additional regulations and adjustments. 3. North Dakota legalized medical marijuana through a ballot initiative in 2016. The Republican-controlled legislature implemented regulatory measures. 4. Missouri legalized medical marijuana through a ballot initiative in 2018. The Republican-led legislature has overseen its regulation. Legislative actions. In some cases, states have legalized marijuana through legislative action rather than ballot initiatives. For instance, Florida. The state legislature passed laws to regulate the medical marijuana industry after voters approved a constitutional amendment in 2016. Florida's legislature has had a Republican majority for many years. Conclusion. Several states with Republican-controlled legislatures have voted to legalize marijuana use, either through direct legislative action or by implementing voter-approved initiatives. The trend shows increasing bipartisan support for marijuana legalization across the United States, driven by changing public opinion and the potential for economic benefits from regulated marijuana industries.
Okay, now I'm going to ask the same question about the Democrats. How many states with Democratic representatives in the House and Senate passed laws to legalize marijuana? Now, also, let's observe the states that were mentioned. The states that were mentioned here were, let's see here. Right. Okay, here we go. For recreational use, Republicans in the House and Senate, states with Republican-controlled legislators. Alaska, that's 1. Montana, that's 2. That's 2. That's only 2 with Republican legislators. Okay, let's go to Oklahoma. That's 3. Utah, that's 4. North Dakota, that's 5. Missouri, that's 6. Okay, so there's your answer. there's your answer. Do black men live in those states? I mean, is this where black men live at? Because this is the only place where the Republicans have done something on the matter. You see, so now let me ask the same question about the Democrats, so we're not unfair. Oh wow, the Democrats, man, they own it. Let's see here. This is wild, yo. Look at this. I mean, this is crazy.
As of August 2023, several states with Democratic-controlled legislatures have legalized marijuana, either for recreational or medical use. Here's a breakdown of those states. Recreational marijuana legalization. States with Democratic-controlled legislatures. 1. California legalized recreational marijuana through a ballot initiative, Proposition 64, in 2016. The California legislature, which has been predominantly Democratic, has since managed the implementation and regulation. Get 2. Colorado legalized recreational marijuana through a ballot initiative, Amendment 64, in 2012. The state legislature, which has had a Democratic majority for significant periods, has overseen the regulatory framework. 3. Oregon legalized recreational marijuana through a ballot initiative, Measure 91, in 2014. The Democratic-controlled legislature has managed the regulation. Washington legalized recreational marijuana through a ballot initiative, I-502, in 2012. The state legislature, predominantly Democratic for many years, has handled regulatory matters. 5. New Jersey legalized recreational marijuana through a ballot measure in 2020. The Democratic-controlled legislature has passed additional legislation to regulate the industry. 6. New York legalized recreational marijuana through legislation, the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, passed in 2021. Both the New York State Assembly and Senate were controlled by Democrats at the time of passage. 7. Connecticut legalized recreational marijuana through legislation, the Cannabis Act, passed in 2021. The Connecticut General Assembly was controlled by Democrats at the time. Medical marijuana legalization. States with Democratic-controlled legislatures. 1. Maine legalized medical marijuana through a ballot initiative in 1999. The Democratic-controlled legislature has overseen its regulation. 2. Vermont legalized medical marijuana through legislation in 2004 and recreational use through legislation in 2018. The legislature, predominantly Democratic during both periods, managed the changes. 3. Rhode Island legalized medical marijuana through legislation in 2006. The legislature has been predominantly Democratic for many years, influencing ongoing regulatory adjustments. 4. Maryland legalized medical marijuana through legislation in 2014. The Democratic-controlled legislature has managed the implementation. Conclusion. States with Democratic-controlled legislatures have played a significant role in the legalization and regulation of both recreational and medical marijuana. This trend reflects the broader shift in many Democratic-led states towards reforming drug policies and managing the legal marijuana industry.
Now, it is very, 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 very clear that Democrats have passed more legislation on the matter that, who brought this matter up? Let's take a look at it again. Bing Bong 80 brought it up. V. Bennett, since you're so stuck on race, how do you feel about the countless black men she imprisoned for marijuana? And then when she was asked if she ever smoked it, well, it's very clear. Are you talking about 2016 in California? Because they've had passed legislation in 2016. Was it before that? But in any case, the Democrats have done more regarding marijuana reform, medical and recreational, than Republicans. And if you want to notice something, what's so ironic, black men, you need to listen to this. If you're worried about marijuana, if you're worried about police stops, if you're worried about the police stopping you in your car and smelling marijuana and then searching your car and killing you after, if you're worried about that, if you're worried about that excuse that police are always seem to be using when they're performing racialized stops. That means stops based on your skin color. Don't you think reforming reforming marijuana laws would be of your benefit in the states you live? Where are the southern states? They mentioned Florida. Where's the other states? What about Georgia? Let me see here. Let's go back to here and find out. That's excellent. I'm glad he brought the point up, Bing Bong, but Bing Bong, you don't make any damn sense, really. So let's see here. What southern states have passed marijuana reform in the USA? Let's see here. Okay, Georgia, Alabama. Okay, let's listen. Let's see here.
In the southern United States, several states have passed marijuana reform measures, though the extent of the reforms varies. Here's a summary of southern states that have enacted marijuana reforms. Medical marijuana reform. 1. Florida. Medical marijuana legalized through a constitutional amendment, Amendment 2, in 2016. The Florida legislature has since passed laws to regulate the medical marijuana program. Georgia. Medical marijuana legalized in a limited form through legislation, HB 1, in 2015, allowing for the use of low THC cannabis oil for medical conditions. The state has expanded the program over time. 3. Alabama. Medical marijuana legalized through legislation, SB 46, in 2021, allowing the use of medical cannabis with a prescription. The program includes provisions for patient registration, dispensaries, and qualifying conditions. 4. Mississippi. Medical marijuana legalized through a ballot initiative, Initiative 65 in 2020, with the law taking effect in 2022. The program includes a comprehensive framework for medical marijuana use and distribution. 5. Louisiana. Medical marijuana legalized through legislation in 2015. The state has expanded the program over time, allowing broader access to medical marijuana. Recreational marijuana reform. 1. Virginia recreational marijuana legalized through legislation, HB 2312, SB 1406, in 2021, allowing for personal use and home cultivation. The law also includes provisions for regulated sales, though retail sales were set to begin in 2024. In summary, southern states have seen significant progress in marijuana reform, particularly for medical use. Virginia stands out for its legalization of recreational use. Other southern states are moving towards broader reforms, but the pace and extent of legalization vary across the region.
So, if you have an election coming up this year, folks, and you believe that police use marijuana, smelling marijuana, as an excuse to tell you to get out of your car and search your car, right? Which is one reason why in the state that I come from, Washington, D.C., why it's legalized. And police cannot use the smell of marijuana at any time to perform any search of your car or your property, your home, whatsoever. Period. It is a no-go. Now, if you want stop and search to if you think that's a problem for minorities or for black men, get up and vote. Tell your congressman or woman, tell your Senate representative, right? Tell your governors, tell them this is what you want because this is affecting you in your state. Okay? The federal government cannot force the state. You see, it's a state matter. You need to get up and do it. So, the federal government can assist you, give you some tools maybe, but they cannot, it's a state matter right now. So get out there. Now, let me go over to get out there and vote. But I did notice something here. Virginia is the only southern state that has, it's the only southern state actually that has a recreational use to some extent. All the other states that were mentioned here, let's keep an eye on that, y'all. You folks voting in these states right here, Florida. Are you tired of getting pulled over by the police and having your car searched because they say something? I smell marijuana. yo, you need to vote. You need to vote in Florida. And you need to not just vote, but you need to ask your representative today why they have not done something about it. And guess what? You could tell them it's because I'm always getting stopped and they always search my car just by saying they smell marijuana. A traffic stop because they said they could smell marijuana. They told me to go in my glove compartment to get my ID because they said they smell marijuana. I tried to get the ID and they shot me. You guys need to stand up for yourselves. Georgia, if you live in Georgia, get stepping, get to doing something about it. Vote. But guess what? Why have your representatives not done it yet like other representatives? Your life is at stake. Your life is at stake. And if you believe that black men or black people are stopped by the police more than black folks, get busy down there in Georgia. And guess what? Congratulations to the black folks and the other folks that are busy taking this issue up. Congratulations for you. But you can see your state still has not gotten there yet. Alabama, there's an election going on this year. It's in 2024. You can do something about that because that actually affects people that get harassed by police differently than people that don't. Just the smell of marijuana seems to open up a whole lot of possibilities. Mississippi, get busy down there in Mississippi. You have an opportunity to change some of this stuff. You have an opportunity to stop people from getting overly populated in the prison by being identified just because they're black and they smell like some weed. You can do something about it. Unless you want Kamala Harris to ask the Congress to do it. I mean, you can ask or you can wait for Kamala Harris to do it. It's up to you. When she becomes president, she can ask all the governors, all the senators, all the Congress people in these states to get busy and bring a bill to her desk to sign. Louisiana, black folk, minorities, and others that are tired of this being harassed by police just because of the smell of marijuana. If you're tired of that, tell your representatives you want something done this election cycle. Is Donald Trump going to do it for you? Is Donald Trump going to do that for you? Is Donald Trump going to do that for you? I don't think so. Why is he not going to do that for you? Because he's a liar. That's why. He knows you're suffering. He knows you're in pain, but he doesn't give a damn. Okay, so let me get back over to the let me get back over to some of these Trump these MAGA folks, man. They're just getting at me, really. Yeah, they're live today. Look at this BS artist. It's probably another troll. Who knows? It's not a real name. We don't know if this is an American citizen. We don't know if this is a Russian bot. You know, see, me, I actually use my real name. I stand behind what I say. A lot of people on YouTube don't, apparently. You know, they usually call it trolls. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, well, that's enough. There'll be more people here. I mean, there's also plenty of positive responses, though, too. Like Kevin Brown, ironic, he uses a real name. He said he's talking about Trump. He said Trump doesn't have a clue. Someone told him DEI is bad. And that's so true because I don't know why they targeted Kamala Harris with that, because the truth of the matter is that any person, any type of person with any background in the United States can be a DEI hire. Yes, you can. And it's made to benefit folks. Let's say, for an example, there's an all-black school. Guess what? Guess who they also have to include, right? If you're a person that's white or Asian or Spanish or any other, right, you can qualify for a DEI to be admitted into the school because they're looking to have a certain number, some minorities from different backgrounds, because they feel it makes us stronger. You see, they feel that diversity makes everybody stronger. You see, so it works both ways. So please don't forget that. Now, let me step up out of here. Is there anything else I'm forgetting here before I go on? Let me see here. We can call this one back up. Let me just double check the news real quick and then make sure I don't miss if there's one more news cycle coming out of here. Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. I want to see if he made a statement. That's the only thing I didn't get to see. Yeah, let's check CBS. No, did I start with CBS? Yeah, I started with CBS. Let's see here. Live coverage, Face the Nation. Not sure about that. Okay, should I see what's up with Fox? Let me see what's up with Fox here. Let's do that.
This is information chaos. This.
Here we go.
To some rural voters who may have defected from Democrats in the past, given his background, his experience.
In, what does this mean for Minnesota?
What it means for Minnesota is a few different things. First off, of course, it puts Minnesota on the map again. You know, for many people on the two coasts or flyover zone, suddenly everybody's going to be interested in Minnesota and the Minnesota governor. But internally to politics, what this means is a couple of possibilities here. One is assuming that Harris does win and Walz is the VP. He resigns as governor probably at the end of the year. This means Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan goes up to become governor. Bobby Joe Champion, who is the president of the Senate, goes up to become lieutenant governor. And it has a cascading effect in terms of what it means for other positions. But if that were to happen, we would have the first female governor, first Native American governor in Minnesota, and we would have the first African-American lieutenant governor in Minnesota. So a lot of, let's say, again, cascading or domino effects internally in Minnesota politics.
Let's talk about this pick. We knew pretty much at the start of the day it was likely going to be Walz or Shapiro. Those were the two top finalists. The final two is what we were hearing from sources all across the board. What do you think changed? Why do you think Walz tipped the scales, if you will? Why do you think he was picked over Shapiro out of Pennsylvania?
Okay, I think a couple of possibilities. One, I'll first say that he's been a very good, that is Walz, a very good defender of Democratic Party values and a very good in terms of criticizing the Trump administration and, let's say, the Republicans. I think it's first. Second, I always say that the first factor in terms of picking a vice president is do no harm. And there were some people who said that Shapiro's stance on Israel, some will even go as far as saying because he was Jewish, also hurt him in terms of possibilities. But at the end of the day, I think for Walz, he represents a lot of what the progressives in the Democratic Party want to do. You know,
yeah, Lord forbid we have Trump out here saying Tim Walz is a DEI hire. I mean, we wouldn't want that now. So
his positions on abortion, LGBTQ issues, the spending for educational funding, for a whole host of issues, voting rights, I think is important. And what this signals to me is that Harris is going to run a campaign from the progressive left at this point, is that she was not going with a more moderate Shapiro, a more moderate Kelly from Arizona, but is going to run really a progressive ticket and set up a clear contrast between the Trump-Vance ticket. So this is a pretty significant direction for Harris to be going for Walz. And also,
you know what? That's exactly my sentiment. That really is what it has to be. I mean, she's going to pick the VP that best fits the direction she wants her campaign to go in, you know, and they're going to look at all the details. And I also like Shapiro to some degree. Don't get me wrong. I don't necessarily mind Shapiro myself. Actually, I don't mind Shapiro at all. But when you look further into both of them have great backgrounds, by the way, and great experience. But if you're going to do a very, very, progressive, what they call progressive, right, left campaign, if you're going to run that, then I agree. Tim Weiss is definitely the pick.
So given the fact that he's a relative unknown across the country at this point, I think one of the challenges is going to be to ask how well does Walz introduce himself and can he help deliver some additional votes that Harris will need in those critical swing states to be able to win the election.
You were saying that he kind of checked the box, do no harm. There wasn't enough negative stuff out there about him.
Correct.
But we can probably guess that the GOP is going to go on the offense. The first, right out of the gate, will probably be the civil unrest following George Floyd. The visuals, the video. Is that where you think that their first attack is going to go?
I think it's exactly where it's going to be because you're right. We have an awful lot of video out there that they can show that's very graphic and very compelling.
The GOP, if they go that route, that's a losing strategy. It's just a losing strategy. Because again, I understand MAGA and the GOP, they're used to people not doing any research, but the Democratic Party is definitely good at bringing their research forward. They don't generalize. They don't make superficial statements. And I think that's going to destroy MAGA's approach. If they plan on looking at George Floyd protests, people went to jail. The people that committed crimes, they went to jail. By the way, don't you know that when you have a demonstration or you have a protest, that doesn't give you the right to commit a crime, and the police are obligated to prosecute all crimes, regardless where you are, whether it's in Washington, D.C., Jan 6, or whether it's in the George Floyd. And that's what happened. So I'm not really getting this selective outrage from MAGA. They kind of seem like they don't take a detailed look, and that they rely on persons to vote for them that do not do any research. And that's their Achilles heel. So all the Democrats have to do is bring the information, bring the research, bring the facts forward, and they can easily win this.
So I think that's going to be the first issue. And then the second is going to be on his liberalism at this point and him being a progressive, liberal candidate. And this is going to be an issue because the 6 swing states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, they're clearly more conservative than the state of Minnesota. And partly why they're swing states is because of their real sort of centrist stance. And the question becomes now, by picking Walz, is she hoping to more mobilize progressive voters, or does she go after more centrist voters? And the pick of Walz suggests that maybe less of going after those centrist swing voters. This is a pretty big gamble in terms of where she's going here. And obviously, of course, we won't know till November 5th, election day, whether the gamble is worthwhile.
Kind of a shift on what some people thought she would do and what her campaign would do. You mentioned the do no harm, but also in the past, oftentimes the VP candidate has also kind of been the one who could maybe go a little further, could say some things that the initial candidate, the presidential candidate, couldn't say. How do you see Walz and Vance when it comes to head with the VP candidates?
Well, I think you're right. First off, I think Trump is pretty aggressive in terms of his rhetoric at this point. Harris is trying to run an upbeat, positive campaign. I think she will leave it up to Walz to take on the Republicans in harsher language. I still don't think you're going to see it in terms of as harsh as you might see coming from the other side for the Republicans. J.D. Vance was picked, I think, in part because Trump is also appealing to the base. It's what's interesting about this election here. Trump and Vance, Harris and Walz. This is all about what we're going to call mobilizing the base.
You know what? Actually, I think it's a little different. I think Trump definitely is still fighting for his base. He's still fighting for it. And I think, because why would he need a vice president to just go after the base? Trump can't do anything else. All he has is his base. He's scared away everybody else in the Republican Party. I don't think Kamala Harris's thing was necessarily about the base, her base. I think it was about maybe expanding it, which is a little different. It's an aggressive posture. It's not a defensive posture if it's going to be about the base. I think Trump, he chose a defensive posture about his base. And if you want to call it base for Kamala, I think she chose an aggressive posture, like we can get even more. Let's go. I think she's very confident pick for president. Actually,
base politics. They're not really going after too many of the swing voters at this point, however few there are. They're really aiming and saying, get the base excited, mobilize them heavily, and hope that that wins the election. And in the process, if there are some swing voters out there, either hope they vote for you or they don't vote whatsoever. So in some sense, both campaigns are playing base politics.
Yeah, Walz has been, at least nationally, his name has been thrown out there a lot recently, and kind of for his folksy style, the fact that he's able to be more direct, and we know that the term "weird" he has been using, and maybe he is appealing to a base that is uncertain as far as on the right, that kind of throwing out some of those terms that maybe we're not seeing from Kamala Harris, who's taking a different stance as far as the way she's communicating the message.
I think you're right. But again, given how polarized we are in this country, Walz is not going to bring over people from the right at this point. Now, maybe 6 years ago, in a different era, when Walz first ran for governor, you remember he ran under the banner of One Minnesota.
you see, that's what it is. Kamala Harris is not worried about bringing people over from the right because Donald Trump had a problem already, and that is he chased away loads of voters from the right. So Kamala Harris is already getting Republicans. She's getting Republicans are dumping Trump by the day and actually coming out in the woodworks and supporting Kamala Harris. So I think, she doesn't need to be defensive. I think it's Trump that's totally defensive about every single thing he does.
To talk about campaigning across the aisles, working across the aisles. He's long since abandoned that approach and has really become sort of, change into a partisan, liberal Democrat. But we're in a state in American politics where, again, there are so few undecided voters. As I keep pointing out to people, this election is going to come down to about 150,000 to 200,000 swing voters in about 5 or 6 swing states. That's how few people are going to really decide what happens in the Electoral College to get elected, to president of the United States. Walz may or may not be able to move some of those few 150,000 voters, but certainly no candidate is going to move somebody on the far right or far left just simply because of the polarization that we have.
Sure. David Schultz, thank you so much. Thanks for letting us pick your brain on this very busy Tuesday morning. We thank you. Standing by, talking about this big news, political news, not only here locally. Doug, are you hearing what are people saying there in D.C.?
Well, as you know, it's not exactly a shock. I think it would have been more surprising a few days ago, but it does seem as though Governor Walz's stock was really kind of rising on this short list. He's been mentioned, again, as you know, for some time as a potential VP candidate, but kind of farther down on that short list. And then yesterday, all of a sudden, talk really turned to this race narrowing down to him and Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, both of whom brought different potential strengths to the ticket. But, there was also a lot of talk about personal rapport, that the Governor Walz may have just kind of struck things off better with Kamala Harris. And there was this, one-on-one interview over the course of the weekend. And ultimately, this decision was made pretty late in the game, but it sounds like we will see the two of them together on stage in Pennsylvania later. And that's a little bit awkward because, of course, they're going to be appearing in Pennsylvania, the state where Governor Shapiro is from. But they will be on stage together in Philadelphia later this afternoon.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the awkward.
It's going to be really great to hear Walz's his acceptance speech or statement. Let me know if you find that online. Leave a comment. Leave it in the comment section if you find it. Drop a link there. You can drop links in the comment section, and or if he makes a public if he comes out and says it verbally, let me know over one of the news outlets. Let me know how it goes. But folks, I'm out of here for the moment, and I will be back later on today. I will be following. Hopefully, I did schedule myself to be following the rally in Pennsylvania that's scheduled for today, because I really want to see Walz give a speech, and I know it's going to be great. I really want to see Kamala Harris give a speech. As far as a hold on the English language, they both are way more articulate than Donald Trump, and therefore I'm looking forward to the substance. In my mind, they bring both of those, and even Shapiro, by the way, they bring way more substance in their speaking than with less amount of time than Donald Trump does. Donald Trump goes on for 90 minutes and you almost have no substance. Zero substance with Donald Trump's speeches. He has the longest speeches on record. He set a record for speeches multiple times, but there's almost no substance. So I'm really looking forward to listening to the candidates, to Kamala and Weiss, and just listening to the substance they bring to the table and see how and enjoy how articulate and in depth they are on the subject. So see you guys later on today. Peace, everybody. Bless.
This is kind of like a prayer going out to all the peeps close to me and dear to me, the ones that's been there for my whole life, the ones that came later in my life. Yeah, I appreciate all the blessings God has given me, and I want to repay it to you like this. Clap your hands. Everybody clap your hands. Introducing. This is the joint where we give shout outs to all the peeps, you know what I'm saying? You know we couldn't do this joint without spreading some love to the ones. Yo, check it. Clear.